The federal government used part of the Nigerian Treasury bills and bonds issued in 2024 to pay down ways and means advances from the Central Bank of Nigeria by 4.83 trillion naira. The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, has disclosed. While the federal government reportedly owes the Apex Bank about 30 trillion naira under the ways and means advances, the actual amount is being disputed, with the minister recently disclosing that the figures would be audited to authenticate the exact sum being owed. However, while presenting a paper at the recent Lagos Business School Breakfast Club, Edun disclosed that the federal government used part of the NTBs and bonds issued in 2024 to pay down ways and means advances by 4.83 trillion naira. The upper chamber had on December 30, 2023, following President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's request, approved and confirmed the securitization of an outstanding 7.3 trillion naira ways and means advances. Right, Dr. Bati, we start with some news from the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, who has been speaking over the weekend and said that they've been able to pay over 4 trillion naira.
Okay, look, the issue about ways and means was a major problem under the Buhari administration. The Buhari administration chalked up 22.7, yes, I think it was 22.7 trillion naira in terms of ways and means, in violation of the CBN Act, because the threshold is properly defined in Section 38, Section 39, of the CBN Act of 2007. So what we had with the Apex Bank under that administration was sheer brigandage. And that has been part of the problem. However, when the Tinubu administration took over in 2023, November, December, they asked for the securitization as the Buhari administration had asked for, also in their own regard, for 7.3 trillion naira to be securitized, taking us to a 30 trillion, threshold, clearly in violation of the law. One of the arguments as part of the conversation has been, look, how did that happen? How did we in Nigeria end up with a government that routinely broke the law? And nobody is talking about, how government breaks the law. There's a book titled How Government Breaks the Law. I don't immediately remember the names of the author, but how government breaks the law. When government breaks the law, government violates the democratic process. And we cannot be in a democratic dispensation whereby government routinely breaks the law. Under the Buhari administration, we had a situation where government was constantly breaking the law, whether it was with regard to financial engineering or with regard to human rights. So this is the legacy that President Tinubu, inherited. So now, what Mr. Wale Edun, Coordinating Minister of the Economy, is telling us, more or less, is that they are trying to clean up the mess. That's just the simple message that he was telling them at the LBS workshop that he attended. Okay, they are trying to clean up the mess. They have paid 4.3 trillion, over 4 trillion, he says. But if you minus and remove, we're still having about 23 trillion to deal with. So they have paid, 4 trillion using treasury bills and bonds, advances, and using all of that to try to correct the situation, to ensure stability within the economy. So what happens to the remaining 27 trillion that is still waiting? And this is why certain activists within the sector have been saying that we need to have a closure with regard to what happened under the Buhari administration. How all of a sudden, it became very easy to just print money in violation of the law. That's one point. The second point, however, is that Mr. Edun making saying, okay, this is what we've been able to do. I think his position on the fiscal side, where he is coordinating Minister of the Economy, aligns with the position of the Apex Bank, led by Yemi Cardoso, who has also said that under the Tinubu administration, there will be no frivolous interventions. And we hope that that will translate in concrete terms into, the fact that the Tinubu administration is not going to violate the laws, and the Tinubu administration is not going to engage in a kind of frivolity that we had under the Buhari administration, engaging in all kinds of interventions and also violating, not just the CBN Act of 2007, also the Fiscal Responsibility Act. The third point, which I think is the most important thing, was that Mr. Edun, speaking at the ABS conference, addressed certain issues about how the economy can be strengthened. And he provided certain pathways on which he had been consistent. Number one, that Nigeria will have to shut up, oil production, 2 million barrels. He told his audience, yes. We have not even been able to meet our production quota. So if we are able to meet our production quota, that means more revenue. Number two, he talked about revenue. This administration has consistently said, look, their focus is not borrowing, it's not debt. Wale Edun said so, Yemi Cardoso said so, Senator Atiku Bagudu also said so, that what they intend to do is to generate revenue, not necessarily through taxation, but to, look at the taxation regime. That's why, they have a committee on taxation and fiscal regime to look at the various dimensions. So I think that also makes sense. He talked at that forum about how the Tinubu administration is also going to focus on the non-oil sector, which we have seen in recent reports, seems to be improving. So that also sounds like an intelligent point to make. More than that, he also talked about how this government is going to make sure that apart from non-oil revenue, the economy will be diversified and an enabling environment will be provided. And I think that, all of those points are valid. But what the Tinubu administration needs to do, and which Mr. Edun needs to know, is that they need to move beyond rhetoric. They need to move beyond theory. I mean, President Tinubu has around him well-educated people. When you check their profiles, they've been to all the right schools. They've been in the right places. No, but the challenge that faces President Tinubu is that he's not a textbook president. He cannot afford to be a textbook president. He cannot afford to be a theory president. The challenge that he faces is that we must move under his dispensation, particularly in the economic sector, from theory to praxis. And when we see that translation, that transition, that movement from theory to praxis, we, the Nigerian people, properly recognized by the Nigerian Constitution, we begin to feel the effect. Until we begin to feel that effect, all this lag effect that the experts are talking about, they're just talking theory. When we begin to see that the price of garri has gone down, the price of pepper soup has been reviewed downwards, then we will know that the Tinubu administration is getting it right. This is my view.
Do not mess with Dr. Bati's pepper soup. It must trickle down to that. But I mean, very excellently said as always, Dr. Bati. And like you mentioned, on the surface of it, the right moves, and I'm glad that we've heard from the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy. One thing that's been said is that in recent times, we've heard more from the CBN governor in terms of monetary policy, and we needed to see corresponding action from the fiscal side of things. And the minister used the opportunity of this breakfast workshop by the Lagos Business School to explain or perhaps give a report of what he'd been up to. One of which is the paying back, financing of the 4.83 trillion naira. The first thing it demonstrates is that the issuing of the bonds, government bonds and NTBs was successful, and they were able to raise this amount of money to be able to begin to clean the mess, in the words of Dr. Bati, to clean the mess that was orchestrated by the last administration. One of the things that we must begin to do as a nation is that when in cleaning messes, we must also be able to ensure that that will not happen again. That we don't provide an environment for the breaking of laws, of government breaking laws to happen again. So what are the mechanisms that will be put in place? What are the systems that we put in place to ensure that this doesn't happen? We already have the law. I mean, we always talk about these things whereby the law is there. It's when it's time to be tested or when it's time to be enforced that it becomes a challenge. So is that guarantee for the people that not only are we going to clean up the mess of the 30 trillion naira debt by the previous administration, well, in combination with this new administration contributing 7.3 trillion naira to that, but also that we wouldn't see a repeat of that. So again, investigations, we know they've closed the investigation against the previous CBN governor, but what is the outcome of that? Who are the people that will take the fall for that? What are the punishments so that impunity does not continue to reign? Beyond that, this is just 16% of the entire, of the total in terms of the 30 trillion naira. So we hope that they will be able to clean up, but very importantly, like he mentioned, 3 core areas that his administration is looking in the near term to deal with in terms of shoring up economic growth in Nigeria. He also talked about agricultural sector as well. Dr. Bati, you want to say something?
No. I wanted to say something. Look, I don't want to be contrarian this morning. Mr. Edon is the expert, but he will still need to explain to us, because he said at that ABS workshop that they are using treasury bills and bonds, to settle ways and means. It sounds to a layman like me, like at least the economics that we try to study, that borrowing to pay for debt. Yeah. So if you are borrowing, you are using it to pay, to offset obligations. That's a part of the economics that the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy may still have to explain to us. But as I say, I don't want to be contrary.
Absolutely.
But he will still need to explain something to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Spot on, yes. Exactly, because the government will still have to pay back NTPs and bonds. So at the end of the day, it's still more boring, but this time domestic in this instance. But let's take other news making the rounds this morning. After several months of brickbats and muscle flexing between Governor Godwin Obaseki of Edo State and his deputy, Philip Shaibu, peace has finally returned to the state as 38-year-old Omobayo Marvelous Godwins was yesterday sworn in as the new deputy governor. The Central Bank of Nigeria yesterday prohibited the use of foreign currency-denominated collaterals for naira loans by bank customers going forward. The federal government of Nigeria has declared Tuesday 9th and Wednesday 10th April and now just recently announced Thursday 11th April as public holidays to mark Eid al-Fitr celebration. The Minister of Interior, Dr. Olubumi Tunji Ojo, who made the declaration on behalf of the federal government, congratulates all Muslim Ummah for the successful completion of the fasting in the holy month of Ramadan. On the foreign scene, Cameroon warns America to boost support for Ukraine on Russia will win war. The Foreign Secretary is holding talks with key Republican politicians to urge them to spend more on military aid to Kyiv. Also, at least 94 people, including children, have died after a makeshift ferry sank off the northern coast of Mozambique. The boat was carrying people fleeing the cholera outbreak that is ravaging the East African nation. Millions of people were plunged into darkness during the daytime on Monday as a total solar eclipse made its way across the United States and eastern Canada after starting in Mexico.